introducing a man that I've got to know very close. We're like sisters now. I got to know his uncle in the 70s when the Anita Bryant and that was called the Children's Crusade to save the children of America. And then John Briggs and trying to remove gay and lesbian teachers. And Harvey became a statewide leader and debated John Briggs and just became I met him before he ran for office, and then I've met Stuart. And let me tell you that for Harvey, it wasn't important having a suit or designer clothes or any of that. Harvey was about building bridges, and can you imagine in the 70s, most homosexuals, as we were then, were just concentrating on getting civil rights. But Harvey was about, hey, let's reach out to seniors. Let's reach out to working families. Let's support Chavez and his great boycott and the farm workers who are being abused and not getting their just pay and so forth. So he believed in coalition building. And when he died and was assassinated, I remember how our community was so affected by it. And so as decades went by, I met Stuart, and it's unbelievable, but Stuart is just like his uncle. Sometimes I call him Harvey, because, and I kid him, I said, are you still wearing the same suit? You know, but to Stuart, it's not important all that either. Stuart has been invited by the Prime Minister of England. He just was with the President of Italy. He's been instrumental in all this stuff. And I got to be honest, we've all met gay leaders and stuff, and the kind of anything like that, being in the White House, being toasted by the President, would affect people. But Stuart has remained focused on carrying on his uncle's legacy, and in his own way has become one of our global gay activists. I'm very proud to call him a friend, and in this day and age, when we need strong leadership that sees and has the vision of building bridges to other communities and understands how we can't achieve equality by ourselves, that we have to have support from other communities. He knows this. He's carrying on the vision. And I believe that Harvey is looking down and is very proud of his nephew. Because certainly Stuart Mill is walking in the steps of his uncle and doing his, not only his uncle, but all of us proudly. Ladies and gentlemen, Stuart Mill.
Thank you. It's really so great to be here in Oceanside in North County with all of you as you begin to build a community center. Community center, actually the idea of building a community center means a lot to me right now because as Nicole said, I've been to a couple places recently. One of them was a 8 or 9 city tour in Italy. And by the way, Italy has 2 Harvey Milk LGBT centers. And I was there for the dedication of the largest LGBT center in Italy, which is in Roma, which was rededicated after my uncle. But the interesting thing is a community center is not necessarily bricks and mortars. A community center is people like Trio, who's a GSA president, who is articulate and engaged in what Nicole was just talking about, building collaboratives and coalitions, and proudly talks about how he has brought other people into his GSA, including the church across the street and other places that we may not naturally look at as allies. So you've got in this community people standing on Harvey's shoulders very proudly, like Trio. So let's give Trio a round of applause. I really wanted to share a story about Italy just because I think it shows that our world does, that hate and non-inclusion, prejudice does not stop at a state border or a city border or a county border or a national border. It's not stopped by an ocean. It's not stopped by a continent. And it's very important, I think, for us into the future to realize that we have a global struggle. We do not just have a state struggle or a county struggle or a community struggle. It is global. We live ever increasingly in a global society. I know more binational couples than I would ever imagine I've known. Many of them are really broken because they can't have a relationship, at least not in the United States. So we do have to do a shifting, and I think my uncle would have been one of the folks leading that bandwagon, that we have to, when we have 75% of the world living in a nation that that condemns our existence, that we have to do something about that. We're not safe here when our brothers and sisters are not safe somewhere else. So interestingly enough, for the Italians, I think there was at least one, there's a minister in, I did get to meet President Feeney, who's the president of the Chamber of Deputies, and most of the mayors of the towns that I went to, and some of them have been longtime allies of ours, and some of them were very strong opponents of ours. One very strong opponent was a minister, Mara Carafani. She's the minister of what is essentially the Department of Labor and the Department of Health and Human Services combined. So she's like Secretary Civilis and Secretary Solis combined. And she said that not only LGBT people, but women and other groups don't need special protection. And she was standing by that position for quite a long time. We had a very nice discussion with her. Political climates have changed a little bit, so she was very open to it. And I handed her Harvey's children's book. And she opened it up, I had an interpreter, and she said, "Oh, it's mostly pictures." And I said, "Yes, it's for children." And she said, "Children?" And I said, "Yes, this teaches about an LGBT activist who worked, as Nicole said, with the disabled and with labor, and there's illustrations of them, but this is a book that we have some schools using to teach about Harvey and the LGBT history." And she thought very hard, and I was with Equality Italia, and she said, "Well, let's see what we can do about translating this into Italian." And we had a press conference, and in the press conference she said, "I had views that were outdated, outmoded, and were wrong. The LGBT community and other marginalized and disenfranchised communities need this ministry's protection." That is the type of reach out that we need to do.